Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ashok. This video is the continuation part of LWC Live Project Build Your Own Retro Board, where I already have created one video which covers these points. So there, first of all, we have discussed about use case, like what we are developing as part of this live project. And after that, we have created new SFDS project and authorized that with Salesforce org. And also we have discussed about all the database objects and created them into Salesforce org. Okay, so these all points we have covered in previous video, and if you have not watched that video till now, then please take link from description and start with first video, else you won't be able to follow along with me. And if you have already watched and completed all the steps, then you are good for this part. Okay, so now let's have a look on agenda that we will cover today in this video. So today, first of all, we will create a new LWC boards component and deploy that to Salesforce org. And after that, we will create new Lightning app page and we'll add our boards component into that. And once we're done with this exercise, then we will start working on Modal Popup to show static and dynamic input controls. And at last, we will create an Apex class and create method to save Modal Popup data. And also we will understand when should we save data using Apex or when should we use LDS, Lightning Data Services. Okay. So these all items we will cover today in this video. And now let's jump into practical implementation and start working on first step to create new boards LWC component. Okay. Now I'm in my VS Code and here I already opened Design Retro Board project that we have created in last video. So if you don't have this project created at your own, then please go through the first video. And now here let's open command plate window and select create lightning web component option. And here let's type boards as component name and press enter. Okay, so this is how we have created new boards LWC component. Now if you will see in our demo implementation, then we have an add button on this component. So let's add HTML markup for this button in our component. Okay, so I have added a lightning card, and under this card I have added a lightning button icon and provided icon name as utility add, and you will get to know these icons name on SLDS official website, and also provided variant as border field, and at last added slot as actions. So this button will be shown in right side. And why this will be shown in right side? So to understand this, we need to know about slots. So if we discuss about the definition of slots, then we can say a slot is the placeholder in the component's HTML markup that can be filled with HTML content when a component is used in a parent component. It means we can define an area in child component and pass HTML content in that area from parent component. So in nutshell, we can say using slots, we can pass HTML content from parent component to child component. Now here in our case, who is child component? This lightning card. So to understand it better, let me show you the code of this lightning card component. And for that, let's open our browser and find lightning based components library GitHub. Then here you will find a GitHub link for base components recipes. So let's open it. Now here in this repository, we can find most of our base components with code. So let me open a LWC folder and find our card component. Okay, in this LWC folder, you can see lots of components and these all are our base components. And now here let's find our lightning card component. So this card is our lightning card component. And here if you'll open this HTML file and find slot, then you can see here we have multiple slot tags, and in LWC we can have two kind of slots, named and unnamed. Named slot means which has defined name for that slot like this, and unnamed slot means without name attribute, like this. And also we can have only one unnamed slot in a component, but we can have multiple named slots. Now let's understand how it works in our case. So whatever markup we will write under this component tag here in this area, that will be directly attached into unnamed slot. So by default our whole lightning card content is the part of this card body. Why? Because if you will not define slot name for the content, then that will be mapped into unnamed slot. But if you want to add something at a specific place, then you need to define slot attribute and need to pass slot name in which we want to attach this content. So as per this lightning card HTML markup, we have action slot under header, and before action in this header part we have icon and title. So icon and title will be visible in the left part and action will be visible in right side. Okay, so this is the reason why our add button will show in right side, because we are not adding that in our card body. We are adding this under action slot, and action slot is right aligned in card component. Okay, and one more thing, if you have noticed here, that component name here we have card, but we are writing lightning card while calling this component. So the reason behind this is namespace. I mean, this card component is the part of lightning namespace, and as per the naming convention rules, whenever we are calling one component into another, then first of all we need to add namespace name, and after hyphen we used to write component name in kebab case. So that's why we have written here lightning hyphen card, and C is the namespace for custom components which are created by us. Okay, now let's say we are done with button HTML markup. So now let's modify meta config file before deployment. Okay, so I have marked Xwas property to true. So we can use this component in Salesforce pages, and where we can use that I have defined under targets. So as app page as target here, because as of now we only want to add this component in app page, but if you require to add it at other places like home page, record page, or in community, then that you can define here as a target. Okay, now to deploy this component to org, let's right click and select deploy this source to org. Deployment is done. Now let's open our Salesforce org where we are developing this use case, and that we can directly open from here in VS Code by clicking on this open org icon. Now it has opened our Salesforce org with setup. Now here first we will create a new lightning app page, then we will add our component into that. So to create new app page, let's open lightning app builder. So type app builder in this text box and select this lightning app builder option, and here click on new and let app page selected in this pop-up screen and click on next. And now here we need to provide page name. So let's enter boards and click on next. Now here we need to select page layout, or we can say page design. So let's select one region as of now, because we only want to show our LWC component in whole page area. So now let's click on finish. Now we are in app builder UI. Here we can design our page, or we can say from here we can add custom or standard components to our pages. And here in left top section we can see all the out of box components which are already created by Salesforce, like chatter feeds, list view, recent items, and many others are here. And below these components we can see custom components section. So whatever component we have created, and if those have added this page type in targets, then you will see those custom components here. Now you can see our boards component here, because we have marked that expose property to true and also added app page in targets, right? So now to add this component on our page, drag it from here and drop on our page area wherever we want to add it. Okay, so this is how we can add our custom components in Salesforce pages. Now let's click on save button. And now if you want to see this page in Salesforce apps, then we need to activate it and assign in apps. So let's click on activation button. And once we'll click on activation button, then it will show a modal pop-up which have 3 sections: page settings, lightning experience, and mobile navigation. So in page setting, we can update page name and page icon, but as of now, let's say this is fine. Now let's click on lightning experience tab. Here in left section, you will see all the available apps in our Salesforce org. And now from here, we can set in which app we want to show our page. So let's say as of now, we only want to show our page in sales app. So click on sales and click on add page to app. And also we can set tab visibility order by dragging and dropping. But let's say as of now, we only want to show it near home. Okay. So this is how we can add our custom pages in Salesforce apps. And if you want to enable this page for mobile app as well, then navigation for mobile app you can define from here, mobile navigation tab. Okay. So let's say as of now we are good with this configuration. So let's click on save and click on bake. Now you can see our boards page here. And if you remember, we have added this page into sales app. So let's click on this app launcher icon to open sales app and select sales from here. All right. Now we can see boards tab near home. So let's click on this and verify add button as well. Okay. Now we can see add button as well in boards tab. So far so good. Now as a next step, we need to open a modal pop-up on clicking of this add button. So let's start working on that. And before starting work, let's have a look into demo implementation, like what is happening on clicking of this add button and what all fields are there. Now I am in my demo implementation, and now here once I click on this add button, then it has opened a modal pop-up with board name, description, and number of section, along with save and cancel button. And here also we have a functionality to create text boxes dynamically on the basis of this number of sections value. For example, if I'll enter 2 here, then we can see 2 text boxes created, and on clicking on this save button, we need to verify that section value should be between 1 to 10, and also title is required for every section. Okay. Now I think we are clear that what we want to build on this modal pop-up. So first let's copy modal pop-up HTML markup from SLDS website, and for that let's find SLDS modal pop-up in browser. And open Lightning Design System website. And here you can see many type of modal pop-up examples. So you can pick as per your requirement. And let's say as of now we want to use this footerless modal pop-up because we will have buttons inside Lightning record edit form. So let's copy HTML code of this modal pop-up by clicking of this copy to clipboard button and paste this markup code in our components HTML file. And now let's remove this unwanted content from body. And now let's update this pop-up heading. And also let's create this close pop-up button click handler. And add lightning close icon instead of this SVG icon. Okay. Now we only want to show this modal pop-up when we click on add button. So let's wrap this into template and add LWC if directive to show it conditionally. And now let's declare a boolean property in JS file and bind here. Okay, so I have created this show modal pop-up property and assigned false value. So by default our modal pop-up will be hidden, and once we'll click on add button, then we will mark it true, and again on clicking of close modal pop-up button, we will mark it false. So pop-up will show and hide accordingly. So let's create on-click handler of this add button. Okay, now this modal pop-up will show on clicking of this add button and will hide on clicking of close modal pop-up button. Okay, now let's use lightning record edit form to show input fields on UI, because this gives us many advantages, like it will render field as per data type and also take care of basic validations, and there are many other advantages of using lightning record edit form. So if you want to know more details about this, then you can refer my crash course video. There I have provided more details about this, or also you can refer Salesforce official website. Okay, now let's copy base HTML markup from lightning component library. So for that, let's find lightning record edit form in browser. And open this first link of Salesforce developers website. And here you can see more details about record edit form. And if you will scroll little more, then you can see sample HTML markup of lightning record edit form. So let's copy and paste this in our modal pop-up body. Okay, so now we have lightning record edit form base HTML markup, and here in this object API name attribute, we need to provide our object name in which we want to insert or update data. So let's declare this object API name property in JS file and assign board's object name. Alright, so what I have done here, I have imported board object from schema module and assigned that into object API name property, which means we are using hard reference of object. Though we can also directly write object API name here, but this is not a good approach, because if we will use object or field name as hard-coded string, then Salesforce will not able to check reference on delete or rename. But if we have imported object or field from schema module, then whenever we will try to delete this object or any hard referenced field, then Salesforce will prevent deletion and show error. Okay, so as a good approach, we should use hard reference for object and their fields instead of writing them as a static string. Okay, and this record ID attribute help us to auto populate field values if we try to edit, but this is not our requirement in this case, because we will only use this modal pop-up to add boards, not for edit. So let's remove this attribute. Okay, now let's add all the editable fields in this form, and as we have seen in demo, we need to add board name, description and number of sections fields along with save and cancel button. So let's add these fields in form as an input field. Okay, so what I've done here, first of all, I have imported these three fields from schema module to use hard reference and assign them into these properties to use them into HTML file. And after that, I have created three lightning input fields and added field name attribute and assigned JS properties. Okay, and also created one cancel button as well, and use pop-up close handler method in on click, because on clicking of this cancel button, we only want to close this modal pop-up, and that's what we are doing in this method. Okay, now as a next step, let's create text boxes dynamically as per number of sections value. So for that, first of all, we need to add onChange listen on number of sections field and assign handler method. So let's assign handler method and create in JavaScript file. Okay, I have used onChange listener with number of sections text box and assigned handler method. Also created this handler method in JavaScript file. So now what will happen? Once we will enter any value in this text box, then this handler method will get called, and here we can write our logic to create text boxes dynamically, right? Now to create multiple text boxes on UI, we need to perform looping, and in LWC, if you want to perform looping in HTML template file, then here we have two ways. Either we can use for each directive, else we can use iterator directive. So these both directives can help us to run loop in HTML template file, and there is only one difference between both of these, that is we can identify first or last item in iterator, but in for each directive we can't identify first or last item. So if you have a requirement where you want to perform some additional logics for first or last item, then you should use iterator, else for each is the good choice. Okay, but these both directives require array property as input. I mean, we can't run loop on number property. So now here in JS file, let's declare a sections array property and assign value in this array in number of sections change handler, and here first read input value that user has entered. Okay, now we will get text box value in this number of sections variable, and using this event.target we can get originator of this event, and in our case we have the text box, and to get value we have added dot value. Now let's write code to add values in sections array. Okay, so what I've done here, first of all we have initialized sections array, so older values can be deleted if there are any, and after that we are running for loop until number of sections value, and under this for loop we are creating a JavaScript object and added id and sections label property. So in id property we are assigning iterator value, so that will be unique number, and in section label we are creating section title dynamically, and finally adding this object into sections array. It means now in this sections array we have all the sections with id and label. Okay, now let's come back to in our HTML file. Now here we want to add text boxes below this number of sections input field. So here let's write code to create text boxes dynamically. Okay, so what I've done here, I have added template tag to use for each directive, and also added for item and provided item as value. So what it will do, it will give us current iterable item into item variable, and under this template tag I have created lightning input control and added key attribute and provided unique value that we have assigned here in loop, and this key attribute is required attribute in for each directive with first element. So this is not specific with input control, this is related to for each directive, and also added label attribute and assign our dynamically created label that we have created here, and at last also added required attribute. So we can see red asterisk icon with text box. Okay, now I think we are done with the code changes, so let's quickly deploy and test it in our Salesforce org. Alright, now we can see Modal pop-up on add button click with all required fields and buttons. Now let's see dynamic text boxes as well. So let's enter 3 into number of sections text box. Alright, now as expected we can see 3 text boxes to capture title for each section. Okay, so this is how we can dynamically add HTML elements in LWC component using for each or iterative directives. So in future, if you get any requirement like this where you need to dynamically create elements, then you can achieve that requirement like this. Okay, so as of now we are good with our progress, and now as a next step we want to validate and save data into Salesforce database on clicking of this save button. So here to save data into Salesforce database we have 2 ways. Either we can use standard data saving process of this record edit form, because you know this lightning record edit form is the out of box component created by Salesforce. So once we'll click on this save button, then it will post our data and save into provided object. But here in our case we have 2 challenges when we use this standard data saving process. First is we have to add custom validations on data prior to save, and second is we want to save data into 2 objects. So you know lightning based form can help us to save 1 record at a time into single object. So in case if you want to save multiple records or want to save data into multiple objects, then we can't use lightning based components to save data. Okay, then here you might be thinking why I have used this lightning record edit form and how we will proceed now. So the reason behind using lightning record edit form is here in this modal pop-up mostly we are showing fields from one object, that is board, and you know in lightning record edit form we can use lightning input fields, which provides many ready-made advantages, like field will render on UI as per data type, and also validations will be automatically applied. For example, if you see this description field in modal pop-up, then you can notice in HTML markup I didn't mark this field required, but still you can see a asterisk icon which is the required icon, and also I didn't set any max length. But if you will see this element in inspect, then this is a text area element and contains required attribute and also contains max length attribute with whatever value we have defined in our object for this field. And if you can see in this HTML markup, we have only used lightning input field for all these 3 controls, but in front of user they are different. Like first one is the text box and another one is text area. Okay, so this is the main reason to use lightning record edit form, because under this we can use lightning input fields, and lightning input fields will read field configurations from our object and render control accordingly. So we can say it will render actual element as per field configurations on UI. So this can save our future maintenance as well. For example, let's say today for this description field we have max size 255 characters, but in future if we change it to 500, then if we are not using lightning input field and hard-coded value in HTML markup, then in that case we also need to make changes in component as well to make max length 500. But if we are using lightning input fields, then they will directly read configurations from our object and render control accordingly. So 500 max length will automatically applied from there. Okay, so now I think you got why I have used lightning record edit form. And now let's discuss how we can proceed to save data into Salesforce database. So to understand that, let's open record edit form component in GitHub library. Okay, so this is the lightning component which we are calling in our custom component, and once you will open this JS file, then you can see whole code under it. But as of now we only want to know what's going on when we click on submit button. So once we'll click on submit button, then this handle submit method will get called. And why this will get called? Because we haven't defined it anywhere in our component, right? So to understand this, let's open HTML file of this component. And here in HTML file, you can see internally Salesforce is also using standard form tag. And here you can see on click listener is assigned handle submit method. And as per default nature of form element, if you have any button which has type submit, and once we will click on that button, then on click of that form will automatically get triggered. So that's why form on click will trigger and call this handler method. So in nutshell, if you have any submit button under form and once you'll click on that button, then our form will be submitted. And in our case, once we'll click on our save button, then this form on click handler will get triggered and call this method. Okay. Now I think it is clear to you why this handler submit method will get called on our save button click. And I know if you are a beginner or just started working as a web developer, then it is quite difficult for you to understand what I am saying here. But please try to understand whatever I am explaining here by rewatching this clip, because this is a very important thing for you and will help you a lot in your entire development career. And if you still have any doubt, then please do let me know in the comments, or you can directly send me your query in mail. I will surely try to help you in that. Okay. Now if you will see code of this handler submit method, then it is dispatching a custom event which has submit name and passing fields in detail property. So now if you know how we can establish data communication between components, then you might got it, like what we can do now. Else let me explain it to you. So to understand it better, we need to know who is child component and who is parent here. And in this case, lightning record edit form is the child component because we are calling it in our custom component. So our custom component is the parent and lightning record edit form is the child. And if you want to pass data from child to parent, and if you want to perform anything from child component to parent, then custom events are the only way. So now what we can do, we can subscribe this custom event in parent component and perform our custom logics on submit button click. So let's open our component again and write code to handle this custom event. Okay, so I have used on submit as listener to listen that custom event. And if you remember, that custom event name was submit. But you know, when we subscribe custom events, then we used to have on prefix with event name. So that's why we have used on submit here. And this is the handler method name that we have created in JavaScript file. And this method will get called once that custom event will trigger. Okay. So now in nutshell, what we have done till now, we have just subscribed submit custom event, which will trigger on clicking of our save button. And why we have subscribed it? To perform our custom logics before data saved into Salesforce database from lightning record edit form. So if you have a requirement where you are using lightning record edit form and want to override standard behavior or want to perform custom validations or logics, then we can subscribe on submit custom event and execute your custom code prior to data save into database. Okay. Now we can write our logics into this handler method. So first let's discuss what we want to do on save button click. So once user will click on save button, then we want to insert data into two objects, board and board sections. I mean, as we have discussed in the last video, board header details will be saved into board object and section level details like section titles, item background theme will be saved into board section object. And before saving, we want to perform some validations to have number of sections between 1 to 10 and also title should be there with each section, right? So now first let me write the code, then I will explain it to you. Okay, now let me explain what I have done here. So first of all, I have written event.prevent default. And why I have written this? To prevent the default behavior of save button, that is to save data into Salesforce database. So simply prevent defaults help us to prevent default action of event. So in case where you want to write your custom logics and don't want to perform standard one, then you have to write this event.prevent default. Now if you want to understand how this is working, so for that let's open our lightning record edit form component again. If you will see code here, then after dispatching custom event, they are also calling doSubmit method, which will save data into Salesforce database. And here on line number 539, they are checking that is this event already prevented. If yes, then it will directly return from here without executing further code. And if we will call event.prevent default in our code, then due to this condition, this doSave method will not execute to save data into database. And this is how we can write our custom logics to save data into database by overriding standard logics. Okay. Now in the next line, we are getting fields data which are sent from child component in detail property. From here, it means now in this fields property, we have data of all the lightning input fields like board name, description and number of sections. But we won't be able to get data of these input controls which we have created to take the section titles. Why? Because lightning record edit form will only consider lightning input fields, not lightning input. Okay. So to read data of these input controls, I have added a custom attribute data section control to identify and access these controls into JavaScript file. So using this data section control attribute, I have selected all the lightning inputs using query selector and stored them into section controls variable. And here we have declared new array section list, and now we are running a for loop over sections controls array to iterate over each control and storing control value into name property and pushing into section list array as a object. Okay, so this is how we will have all the data of section titles into section list array. And now to perform validations, we have created another method and passed fields and section list as input parameter. And if you see this method, then here we are checking section count is between 1 to 10 or not. If not, then we are showing this toast message. And to show toast message, I have created another method. And here also all the sections which has blank name. So using filter method in JavaScript, we can filter records from array by putting conditions on fields. As I am filtering all the sections which has blank name, and if you get length greater than 0, then showing error test message and returning false. And at last, if both conditions are false, means everything is fine, then returning true from here. Okay. And here in handle submit method, we have called this validate data method in if condition. And if we got false as response from this method, then returning from here only, means whatever code we will write below this, that will not execute. Okay, so as of now we have all the data which user will enter. I mean, we have board data and board sections data. Now we will try to save these into Salesforce database. And in LWC, if you want to save data into Salesforce database, then generally we have two ways, using LDS or calling Apex method. And in LDS also we have two technologies, base components and wire adapters. And I have explained these in my crash course video. So if you want to know about these, then you can refer that video. But here in our case, both of these we can't use because they will only work when we want to save single record at a time. But if you want to save multiple records or records in multiple objects, then we have to go with Apex and need to write custom code. So now I think you are clear that when we should use LDS features and when we should go with the custom Apex. So let me repeat once more. See, whenever you want to work with single record, or whenever you want to perform card operation on a single record, then you can go with the LDS features. Like if you are taking inputs from user and saving into Salesforce database, then you can use base components. Or if you want to save data from JavaScript file, then you can use wire adapters. But if you want to work with multiple records, or if you want to save multiple records into Salesforce database in single transaction, then you have to write custom Apex method for that. Okay, so as of now we want to insert data into two objects, board and board sections. So LDS features will not help in that case. So let's create new Apex class and write method to save data into board and board section object. Okay, so we have created new class by selecting create Apex class option in command plate window and named it board controller. And now under this class, we have created save board method, which will return a string and take two input parameters, board and board sections. Here board has board object type, like type is board object and name is board, and sections has list of board sections. Sections value we are holding into board section object, and added aura enable annotation on top of this method. So we can call it from LWC, and under this method, first of all we are inserting this board object, and once it get inserted into database, then this board object will contain the ID into ID property. And to associate board sections with board object, we are iterating each section with for loop and assigning board value as newly inserted board ID. It means all the sections now associated with board, and here on line number 11, and finally returning board ID. Okay, so this is how we have created new Apex class method to insert data into multiple objects. Now as a next step, let's call this method into LWC component. Okay, now in LWC component, I have imported this method using Salesforce Apex module and called this method using await and passed both parameters from here, and finally stored response into result variable. It means we will get board record ID into this result variable, and from here what we are passing as input parameter, we are passing fields object into board property, so that will be received here as a board object. And in JavaScript we have section list array which contains only name property, so from here we are assigning that into sections property. And if you will see type of this section property in Apex method, then this is a list of board sections. So whatever section list we have, that will be received as list of board sections. Okay, and here we can call this Apex method using promises as well, but that is an older way. Nowadays we should use async and await to call any Apex method because it has many advantages. And after calling this Apex method, I have called close popup handler method and called show toast method to show success toast message. Okay, so I think we are done with our code. Now let's quickly deploy these metadata and test in our org. Deployment is done. Now to test this functionality, let's enter some dummy data. Now to test validations, let's click on save without giving value in these title fields. Then as expected, you can see an error toast message here, and once you will enter value greater than 10 and click on save, then also we should see an error message. Okay, as expected we can see an error message like number of section values should be between 1 to 10. Okay, it means our validations are working fine. Now let's change this value to 2 and enter values in these title fields. And once I'll click on save, then data should be saved into database and we should see a success toast message. So let's click on save. Alright, so as expected we can see a success toast message here, and I think data also gets saved successfully. But as of now we don't have UI to verify that, like we do not have created grid to check, but we can verify those data using the Salesforce inspector. Okay, now we can see one entry here in board object, and if you want to see in board sections, then you can see here we have 2 entries. Okay, it means our data also saved successfully in database. Alright, so I think we have covered these all items in this video. It means we have completed today's video's agenda. So now let's discuss what we will cover in next video. So in next video, we will create a new Apex method to get boards list and show boards list using lightning data table in component, and we'll add a open board button in that data table, and also we'll create a new record detail page for board object and redirect user on board record detail page on clicking of open board button. Okay, so this is what we will cover in next video. So that's it in today's video. I hope you learned something new in this video. If yes, then please like and subscribe my YouTube channel and share your feedback in comments. These things will really help me a lot. Thank you so much. I will see you in next video.